There are some things you walk away from in life that don't actually stay behind you. I learned that late, the hard way. Back in Denver, I was a mid-level sales analyst working in a data brokerage firm that danced along the edges of legality. I wasn't innocent, no one was, but I wasn't the mastermind either. We sold consumer profiles, age, habits, purchase histories, location pings, and spun the data into revenue like cotton candy. Then a leak hit Reddit. Internal emails, usage reports, client names. No one went to jail, but some of us were pushed out so the company could say they handled it internally. I was one of the fall guys. Afterward, it felt like Denver turned its back on me. People who used to wave in the lobby looked away. Recruiters ghosted. One guy I thought was a friend told me, flat out, that I wasn't safe to have on his team. And just like that, the world shrank. So I packed up what was left of my self-worth and drove until the map ran out of red lines. That landed me in Missoula, Montana. Quiet, wide, and detached. I rented a one-bedroom off Brook Street, nothing fancy, and took a night shift job at Hollow Trail Gas Mart, just east of the rail spur. The place was barely open, a narrow store attached to 3 old pumps, surrounded by fields and pine scrub. The air smelled like pine sap and diesel most nights, but I didn't mind. I told myself it was just temporary, a lay-low job, no resumes, no exposure. The owner, Hank, was a retired mechanic who barely kept the lights on. We rarely spoke, which was perfect. I worked 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 6 nights a week. My job was to keep the coffee warm, wipe the counters, and make sure no one broke in or passed out behind the lotto counter. At first, it was the most peaceful I'd felt in years, but routines, I've learned, can become cages, or worse, mirrors. He started showing up Thursday nights, always between 10:10 and 10:15. Tall guy, maybe early 60s, wore the same weather-worn flannel over a white tee, jeans that hung a little loose, and boots that had been resoled more than once. He had a neat gray beard, soft but unreadable eyes, and never carried a phone. I started calling him Thursday in my head. He'd buy the same 2 cans of that awful canned black coffee, cold, bitter, metallic, and a scratch-off ticket. And he'd chat. First it was the weather, fires in Canada, rain patterns. One time he talked about elk migration and how it used to come closer to the rail line. I nodded along, kept it polite. I figured he was lonely. You don't judge folks like that in small towns. But then he started saying things that didn't sit right. One night he asked, "You get that green gum restocked yet? The spearmint?" I looked up fast. I had been looking for that exact pack the week before. I'd even written a note about it and left it under the counter, but I'd never said a word out loud. Another night he said, "Quiet shift, huh, Craig?" That was my name, sure, but I never wore a tag. It wasn't printed on anything. I hadn't told him. He said it like we'd known each other a long time. The worst part? He never said these things like they were guesses. He said them like they were facts he'd already verified. That's when the job stopped feeling safe. And I started watching the clock every Thursday, waiting for 10:10 like it was a knock at the door I wasn't ready to answer. The next few weeks I played it cool, but inside, I was unraveling. I kept telling myself he was just observant, harmless. But I started hiding my personal items behind locked drawers. I unplugged the security monitor when I wasn't looking at it. I switched out the store's phone ringer so it didn't make me jump every time. Then one Thursday I called in sick. At 10 p.m. sharp, I parked across the street in the gravel shoulder, headlights off, hoodie pulled up, earbuds in but no music playing. I just sat and watched through the drizzle-streaked windshield. At 10:11 he showed. He didn't go to the cooler, didn't grab coffee, didn't even glance at the candy. He walked straight to the security counter where the monitors sat, just stood there, stared at the screen. 1 minute, still as glass. Then he left. Calm, like it was nothing. When he was gone, I sprinted inside with the spare key Hank gave me, pulled the feed. That stretch from 10:11 to 10:12 was static, not glitchy, not choppy, just flat, hard static, unpausable, unzoomable, like someone had wiped the tape. I tried every trick I knew, every scrub. Nothing. That was the first night I realized something was being done on purpose. The next morning, the landline rang. We rarely used it. Hank had a cell, and the only people who ever called were delivery reps. I answered on the second ring, my fingers sweating against the receiver. No one spoke. Then, a clear, monotone voice, recorded, not live, came through. "He's not just watching you. He's remembering you." Click. Silence. I stood there, breathing like I'd run a mile. I played the message twice on the voicemail log. Same calm voice, same words. Nothing else. I wanted to believe it was a prank. A kid with a modulator. A weird coincidence. But I couldn't stop thinking about how specific it was. That word, remembering, felt heavy. Like a threat in disguise. The next few shifts, I operated on instinct. I stopped checking the back room unless absolutely necessary. I avoided the cameras unless I needed to. I didn't answer the phone on the first ring anymore. And I stopped wearing the blue flannel I'd worn those early shifts. The one Thursday always wore two. About 2 weeks later, I came home from work around 6:30 a.m. It had just started to snow, powder fine like flour. As I fumbled for my key, I noticed something under the door. A folded scrap of paper, the edge fluttering in the cold air. I picked it up. It was written in blocky, precise handwriting, pen on the back of a scratch-off ticket. "Your shift on September 18th will end with you forgetting something very important. Don't bother looking for it. It will already be too late." No name. No other message. I just stood there in the hall holding it. The snow in my hair, my hands shaking. I turned around so fast I nearly fell, half expecting him to be at the stairwell. But I was alone. I didn't sleep that weekend. Just watched the date crawl closer. September 18th. It sat in my calendar like a funeral notice. I tried to tell myself it was a mind game, just weirdness. I even wrote a note to myself to not forget to clock in, set alarms on my phone, taped a sticky note to the inside of my windshield. I walked into work that Thursday like a soldier going back to the front. The first half of the night passed in total silence. A couple truckers stopped in for jerky and water. One guy bought a phone charger and left. But by 3 a.m., I felt the dread creeping in, like something had been slipping away while I wasn't watching. Then it hit me. I hadn't clocked in. I checked the log. Nothing. No punch. No timestamp. The system treated me like I'd never arrived. I stared at the register, cold washing through me. I swore I'd punched in. I remembered doing it. Didn't I? I texted Hank. "Hey, got it fixed? Came in late, glitch maybe." He replied an hour later. "Didn't get any alert. I logged you in manually. All good." No mention of the message. No reference to anything being off. That was worse somehow. Like he didn't want to touch it. Like he knew. I finished the shift in a fog. When I got home, I took off my jacket, the blue flannel, and stared at it. Just fabric, buttons and cotton. But it felt tainted. I threw it in the back of my closet and haven't worn it since. Now I sleep with the lights on. I unplugged the landline before bed. I started journaling every shift, logging everything. What I saw, heard, touched. I need records because memory isn't enough. Not when someone else is using it against you. Because forgetting something isn't just a mistake, it's sometimes the only way they can get inside. So here's the question I still don't have an answer to. What if the worst things aren't the ones you remember, but the ones you were made to forget? They say the worst things in life don't announce themselves. They don't scream or slam doors or even leave bruises you can point to. Sometimes they just sit, quiet, like a bad smell in a locked car. You notice it too late, and then it's in your lungs, under your skin, in your clothes. It clings. That's how it was for me. There wasn't one single day where my life blew apart. It unraveled slowly, thread by thread. I didn't wake up one morning a failure. I arrived there inch by inch, I was 32 and newly sober when I took the graveyard shift at Maple Cross Gas Deli. Not because I wanted to, because it was the only place that didn't ask too many questions about the gap in my resume or the tired look in my eyes. The manager was a guy named Brian, pudgy, always reeking of vape juice and coffee. He hired me after a 5-minute interview in which he mostly talked about the Cleveland Browns. Told me the last night clerk left mid-shift after finding someone passed out on the floor of the beer fridge. He said it like it was funny. I told him I could handle it. The job wasn't glamorous. 3 pumps, 1 register, a deli case that had seen better years and better meat. But I needed the money and I needed the routine. I told myself that if I could just make it 90 days sober, I'd start to feel human again. Get my own place. Stop sleeping in the backseat of my Honda. Stop pretending I was crashing at a cousin's place out in Groveport, a cousin who didn't exist. Most nights were uneventful. Cops grabbing energy drinks, truckers stretching their legs, the occasional couple too drunk to remember what brand of smokes they liked. I kept my head down, kept the floors clean, restocked the jerky and chips, and tried to believe the worst was behind me. Then came Pump 3. The first time I noticed the SUV, it was just after 2 a.m. early April, one of those damp Ohio nights where the wind makes your bones ache. White Toyota Highlander, maybe 10 years old. It pulled up to Pump 3, just close enough for me to see the silhouette of the driver through the window. The engine stayed on. Headlights stayed on. But the driver didn't move. No gas, no window roll down. Just sat there. I figured he was checking his GPS or texting. People do weird things at night. You stop asking questions after a while. But the next night he came back. Same SUV, same pump, same exact time. By the third night, my chest tightened the moment I saw those headlights sweep across the front windows. By the fourth, I knew the plate number by heart, except I couldn't see it. There was always just enough glare to obscure it. By the fifth, I stopped pretending it was normal. I tried brushing it off. I even joked about it to a nurse who came in on her way to shift change. Got a regular now, I said. Doesn't buy anything, just stares from his car like I owe him money. She laughed, but her eyes darted out the window. That's not funny, she said. Men like that don't just stare for fun. On the 6th night, I went outside. It was cold enough that my breath came out in tight puffs. I crossed my arms and walked to the edge of the lit area. "Can I help you with something?" I called out, trying to sound firm. Not scared. The window rolled down halfway. The man was pale, mid-40s, buzz cut, no facial hair, wearing a nondescript jacket. His eyes didn't blink. He looked at me like I was a static image on a screen. "You're not supposed to be here tonight," he said. And then he rolled the window up. That's all. No shouting. No threats. Just that single sentence. I went back inside and locked the doors. I sat behind the counter watching the security feed until the sun rose. He didn't leave until almost 4. Just sat there. Watching. The next day, I told Brian. He shrugged. He probably got dumped. Or maybe he's waiting for someone. Lot of sad sacks out there. I called the non-emergency line anyway. A cruiser rolled by a couple hours later. The guy was gone. The officer, a kid who looked like he hadn't even finished his paperwork training yet, looked at the footage and said there wasn't much they could do. No license plate. No crime. Just some guy sitting in a car. "You sure he didn't say anything threatening?" the officer asked, tapping his pen against the counter. "He said I wasn't supposed to be here." He smirked. "Maybe you weren't." He laughed. I didn't. The man didn't show up for the next 3 days. I tried to believe it was over. I mopped the floors, joked with the morning shift, even got a coffee with a guy from group therapy. For a few days, I felt okay, like maybe things were settling again. Then, just past 2 a.m., the SUV came back. Only this time, he got out. I froze behind the counter, heart hammering so hard it made my ears ring. The man didn't look at me. He walked across the lot toward the air pump, crouched down, and started doing something I couldn't quite see. One hand in his jacket pocket, the other fiddling with the air valve. He stayed crouched for exactly 17 minutes, not moving. Then he stood, walked back to the SUV, and drove off without so much as a glance in my direction. The next morning, I rewound the footage. The security feed skipped. A glitch. One frame between 2:18 and 2:19 where his face looked wrong, stretched, too wide, like someone had dragged it out with a digital brush. It wasn't human for that 1 second, just a smear of skin and shadow and something else. I chalked it up to a compression issue. The cameras were old, cheap, dust on the lens maybe. At 6:35 a.m., a kid pulled up in a beat-up Civic and tried to fill his tires. I heard the boom from inside like a shotgun blast. I ran out, already dialing 911. His left hand was shredded, skin peeling back like strips of red paper. He kept screaming about his fingers. One of them was dangling by a tendon. At the hospital, they said he'd lose 2. I checked the pump after they took him away. The valve had been cross-threaded. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to cause catastrophic failure once the pressure climbed. Someone did it on purpose. The cops came again. I showed them the footage, showed them the glitch. They didn't buy it. "This footage looks tampered with," one of them said. "No," I replied. "It's just a glitch." "Uh-huh. You sleep much lately?" "Not really." "Maybe that's your answer." The next night, I found the sticky note, folded under the monitor. I would have seen it the second I booted up, written in my own handwriting. "You didn't stop him. It's still yours to carry." I didn't remember writing it, but it was mine. The curled loop of the I, the hard slash on the T, my hand. I checked the security feed again. Pump 3 was gone. The label had changed. It now read, April, repeating. I hadn't changed the labels. Nobody else had access. And something inside me cracked, not like a brake you can set. More like a dam finally giving way after years of silent pressure. I didn't drink. Didn't use. But I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Flashes. Glitches in real life. My own face in the convex mirror looked off. The skin too smooth. The expression not quite mine. I stopped sleeping. I'd wake up gasping, shirt soaked in sweat, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. Every time I saw an air pump, my throat tightened. Every time I heard a car idle too long, my stomach turned. I called my sponsor, left a voicemail. He didn't call back. 4 nights later, I watched the monitor like it was my only lifeline. It was past 2, no SUV, no headlights, just a flicker. The label changed again. April. Watching. That's when I knew I had to go. I gave my notice. Brian barely blinked. I packed up my life, what little of it there was, shoved it into a duffel bag and drove. No destination. Just away. I wound up 2 towns over, sleeping behind a speedway for a week before landing a shift job at an all-night diner. I changed my number, got a P.O. box. I still go to meetings. I still count my sober days, but I don't talk about Maple Cross, not anymore. Sometimes, though, when I pass a gas station late at night, I glance at the pumps, just in case, because the part that still eats at me isn't the man in the SUV. It isn't even what he said. It's that somewhere inside me, part of me believes he was right, that I wasn't supposed to be there, and that I still am. What if some burdens aren't lifted but transferred? What if the moment you see something wrong and do nothing, you inherit it? So tell me, if you were standing at pump 3, would you walk away or would you watch? There was a time I thought the graveyard shift was a kind of blessing. The world slept and I slipped through the hours like a shadow. No rush, no noise, no questions. Just the buzz of fluorescent lights, a coffee machine that wheezed like a dying animal, and the soft hum of a radio stuck on a station that only played mid-century detective shows. Some people crave purpose. I craved quiet. My name's Noah Darby. I'm 26 now, but for a while, I felt nailed to 25. Like time had paused the second my twin brother died. Nate. He was the loud one, the funny one, the one who made a room feel alive just by walking into it. People remembered Nate. Me? I was just the guy who worked nights at a Sunoco on the edge of town, counting scratch-offs and cleaning out the slushy machine. Nate died May 3rd of last year, hydroplaned on the west bypass, right into an oak tree. It was raining that night, a heavy spring downpour that made the roads slick as oil. He was supposed to pick me up for a midnight movie, but I'd picked up an extra shift instead. We argued about it the night before. He told me I worked too much, said life wasn't meant to be spent under flickering lights and security cameras. That was the last conversation we had. I live above a laundromat 2 doors down from the station. 1 room, window barely opens. Mattress so thin you can feel the plywood underneath. But it was close and cheap, and more importantly, it was quiet. I didn't need much after Nate, just routine. That routine cracked open April 30th. It was just past midnight when a guy walked in, tall, scruffy denim jacket with one sleeve torn at the cuff. He grabbed 2 Monster energy drinks, came up to the counter and said, "Bet I'm your most exciting visitor tonight, huh?" He laughed like he was the only one who got the joke. 30 minutes later, he came in again. Same jacket, same drinks, same line, word for word. I stared at him too long, trying to see if I'd imagined it. He looked me straight in the eye like nothing was wrong. At first, I chalked it up to being tired. Sleep was elusive lately. Some nights I'd lie on the hardwood floor of my room just to feel something solid. The soft thrum of dryers from downstairs came through the vents, constant as a heartbeat. I started keeping a shift journal, thinking maybe I was just misremembering things. Maybe I'd confused the days. Or maybe grief was warping reality in ways I didn't understand. But then the cameras glitched. Between 12:10 and 1:10 a.m., every single night the security feeds would stutter. Then they'd reverse, not flicker, not lag, reverse. 4 minutes and 14 seconds exactly. Like someone hit rewind, clean, seamless. I tried pulling up the footage later. That block was always gone, like it had been cut out with surgical precision. Then the van showed up. White, unmarked, except for duct tape across the back doors spelling one word, again. It rolled into the lot at 12:42 a.m. Sat there idling for 6 minutes, no delivery, no driver, no movement. Then it pulled away. I called our supplier the next morning, asked if they'd changed the delivery schedule. The guy on the line sounded confused. "We stopped all overnight routes last year," he said. "Too many risks." I didn't argue, just hung up. Then I checked the footage again. Same van, same time. Only this time I saw myself step outside, blink. And then suddenly I was back behind the counter, watching myself on the screen like it was some live feed from a dream I never signed up for. No memory of coming back inside. Just the cold, jarring cut of missing time. That was the first time I knew something was wrong with the nights. Truly wrong. I tried to act normal. Stocked candy bars. Wiped down the soda fountain. Smiled at Janine, one of our regulars, when she came in for her usual menthols and cherry soda. But something had shifted. Her eyes lingered too long, like she was trying to recognize me through a fog. "You said that last time," she muttered as she handed me the cash. "What?" "Right here. Same gum display behind you. You said, maybe we're creatures of habit." I forced a smile. "Well, maybe we are." She stared a second too long. "No," she whispered. "You said that last time too." She took her change and left without another word. That night I couldn't sit still. The pump alarm started going off, short beeps like someone lifting the nozzle, but the lot was empty. Every time. No cars, no wind. Just those single beeps, always in that same strange rhythm. One night all the pumps shut off. 12:13 a.m. The air outside was dense, still, like standing underwater. Then the pumps started lighting up, one by one. Pump 2, beep. Pump 4, beep. Pump 7, beep. Pump 3, beep. Nate's birthday, February 4th, 1997, 2 of 4, 7 to 3. I just stood there, frozen. My breath felt wrong in my chest. I could smell something faint in the air, burnt toast and antifreeze. The next morning I checked transaction logs, nothing recorded. No pumps used, no customers in or out, like that hour didn't happen. Receipts started printing with the wrong date. Always 1 year off, May 2022. I checked my journal. The customers, the conversations, even the radio segments, they were all looping. The weather, the bugs smearing the windows, the same bird landing on the same lamppost, like someone had copied and pasted a week of my life over itself. Then one night, the radio crackled and played an ad for a pizza place that shut down last summer. I blinked, and the register reverted to the old POS interface we'd stopped using in July. The screen glowed with old colors I hadn't seen in months. The freezer hummed louder than I remembered. I turned toward the freezer aisle and saw him. Nate. Not a hallucination, not a memory. His reflection in the glass door. Standing inside the freezer, waving. His skin pale, face frosted over like he'd been there for months. Smiling, calm, present. I stumbled back and hit the cooler shelf. By the time I looked again, the glass had fogged over. No image, no trace. I checked the calendar. May 3rd, 2022, the day he died. That night broke something in me. I sat behind the counter and waited, lights off, heart in my throat, just waiting. At 12:42 a.m., the van returned. It didn't idle, didn't make a sound, just parked. I stepped outside, every nerve screaming. The back doors were open. Inside, nothing but a mirror. A full-length pane of glass bolted to the floor. I walked closer, looked in. Nate. He wasn't smiling this time. He looked drained, tired, hollow. He mouthed something slowly. "You weren't supposed to take my place." Then I blinked, and I was behind the counter. Register reset. 12:03 a.m., like I'd never left. I quit 2 weeks later. My manager found me curled up in the walk-in cooler holding a sticky note that said, "Stay out of the loop." I don't remember writing it. The next day, I found Nate's hospital wristband in my coat pocket. It was still warm. I live further out now. No night shifts, no cameras, but sometimes, just before bed, I think I hear that freezer hum, or see the reflection of someone who isn't there. I think the loop goes on, just not with me. Maybe someone else is stuck now. Here's what I want to ask you. If time offered you one moment back, just one, would you take it, even if it meant never leaving? The highway feels different after a certain number of miles, like it starts to become a living thing growing into your bones. I've logged over 1 million miles behind the wheel, maybe more. I don't count anymore. I used to, back when I was married, when I had someone to send postcards to. Now it's just the road, the hum of tires, the low murmur of talk radio at night. There's a kind of peace in the monotony, until it cracks, until one small thing doesn't behave the way it should. There's this place I always hit just past midnight, Pine Valley Fuel, middle of nowhere off Route 219 in West Virginia, right about the halfway point between my ex's place in Chillicothe and my one-bedroom apartment in Wheeling. Not quite a truck stop, not quite a convenience store. It's the kind of place where the vending machines are mostly empty and the ceiling tiles sag a little from old leaks, but the bathrooms are weirdly spotless. That's what made it trustworthy to me. Clean sinks, quiet lot, decent coffee. It was reliable. That night in March, everything was routine. At first. I rolled in a few minutes before midnight. I remember because I glanced at the clock and thought, might be nice to get some shut-eye in the cab after the bathroom. The parking lot was empty except for one minivan, probably abandoned there. I grabbed my thermos, stepped inside. Fluorescents buzzing, cooler humming, radio playing some old Toby Keith song nobody under 50 listens to anymore. Same as always. But when I hit the bathroom door, the air changed. It sounds stupid to say that. The air changed, but it really did. Cooler, heavier. like I walked through a membrane of pressure. I chalked it up to fatigue. I'd been driving nearly 9 hours. My shoulders ached. My left leg was stiff from cruise control. I went into the far stall, shut the door, and sat down just to breathe for a minute. Then the lights went out. Not a flicker, not a surge. They just snapped off, all at once. Total blackness for about 2 seconds, long enough for me to fumble for my phone. Then came this low, pulsing red glow, like backup lighting, but wrong. It came from above the mirror, not the ceiling. Then I heard it, a slow, dragging scrape across the tile floor. Not footsteps, something heavier, deliberate, like a wet boot being pulled across the ground. I froze. My breath caught somewhere in my chest. I leaned forward, carefully peering through the narrow crack between the stall door and the floor. Nothing. But then, a voice. Low, raspy, right next to me. They locked it again. My heart jerked. It wasn't my voice, and it wasn't coming from outside the bathroom. It was from the next stall over. I sat up straight, unsure whether to respond or just stay quiet. I finally said, "Hey, you okay, man?" No answer, just the faintest rustle. Then, "They lock it after midnight. You shouldn't have come in." I was wide awake now. My fingers gripped the metal latch so tight my knuckles hurt. I shifted slightly, just enough to glance down into the neighboring stall. No shoes, no legs, nothing. Just an empty concrete floor and the faint sound of something ticking, like a watch or a clock, but slower. I stood, jiggled the latch. It wouldn't budge. I knocked on the door with my palm. "Hey, anyone out there? Door's stuck." No response. From the hallway, the muffled sound of the radio kept playing, warbled by static now. Faint music, half melted into a thick hiss. I was sweating now. I looked behind me, and that's when I saw it. Carved into the back wall of the stall, behind the toilet. Deep gouges in the wood, freshly done, the edges still raw and dark. You can scream. The night staff doesn't check anymore. I took a step back, trying not to panic. I reached for my phone, turned on the flashlight. It flickered once, then the camera app refused to open. I switched to voice memo and hit record. Travis Heller, March 18th, Pine Valley fuel stop off Route 219 somethings. The app saved the file, but not under today's date. It labeled it March 12th. I hadn't used the app that day. I hadn't been anywhere near West Virginia then. I checked again. March 12th. I hit record a second time. Same result. Then a third. Still March 12th. That's when the voice returned. Same stall, same barely there whisper. Travis. And I lost it. I rammed my shoulder against the stall door, once, twice. It gave on the third try, throwing me into the main room. But it wasn't the same room I entered. The red glow was gone. Now the lights overhead were sickly yellow, flickering with a kind of chemical intensity. The whole place looked older, decayed, walls stained, sink chipped, paper towel dispenser gone. I stumbled toward the door. The cashier, a pale woman with long silver hair and grayish eyes, stood behind the counter, not looking up. She was humming something, a lullaby maybe. "Men's room's broken," she said. I stared at her, stunned. "What?" "Been out of order all week." Still not looking at me. "Don't worry about it." I ran outside, breath short, heart ready to punch out of my chest. Climbed into the cab, slammed the lock down, and floored it out of there like a man on fire. But here's the worst part. When I passed back through Pine Valley that morning, I turned around. I had to. Call it pride or stubbornness, or maybe I needed to prove it didn't happen. The sun was up. Birds were chirping. Everything looked normal. Fresh paint. Coffee brewing. Cashier was a middle-aged guy with a friendly smile. No trace of the woman. I walked to the bathroom door and froze. There were 2 signs taped up. One said, "Do not use after midnight, door locks automatically." And below it, a smaller one in red, Last incident, Travis Heller, March 2021. March 2021, a whole year ago. I couldn't move. I couldn't even think straight. I hadn't told anyone my name. Not the cashier, not a manager. Nobody. And yet, somehow, it was part of the station's official posting. The new cashier must have seen the look on my face. "Someone messing with the sign?" he asked. I didn't answer. Just backed out, got in the truck and drove. But it didn't stop there. That night, 3 hours south in Somersville, I pulled off into a motel to calm down. I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. I checked it. A new recording in my voice memo app. Same voice. Mine. They lock it after midnight. Timestamp, March 2021. Same time, same tone. Calm, steady, not exhausted like I was now. I didn't remember making it. I didn't remember stopping there that year. But I must have. Or did I? I reached out to a buddy in Elkins, a firefighter, asked him to swing by Pine Valley and check the sign. He texted a photo. Sign was still there. My name. March 2021. No mention of anything recent. From that moment, something in me cracked. I started spiraling. My panic attacks, which had been maybe once a month, were now daily. I gave up long-haul gigs, started doing regional runs, always daytime, always with someone tracking me. Even now when I try to sleep, I wake up at exactly 11:58 p.m., without fail, as if my body's branded by that time. Every sound becomes a whisper. Every creak feels like dragging footsteps. Every breath carries the fear that my own voice will start echoing back something I don't remember saying. My therapist thinks it's trauma, a memory fracture, maybe a dissociative episode. She believes the mind can bend in ways we don't understand, especially under stress. But when I told her about the sign, her tone shifted. "There's something else happening here," she said. "Stay away from that place." So I do. I haven't been back. I avoid that stretch of 219 entirely, but the memory clings to me like smoke. It's not the supernatural that scares me. It's the uncertainty. The idea that maybe I did something that night I can't remember. That maybe I changed that place. Or that place changed me. Last week, I found a public security feed online. Pine Valley's lot. I scrubbed back to March 18th, 2021. There I was, my truck, pulling in at 11:55 p.m., 4 minutes of static. Then I'm sprinting back to the cab. I don't remember any of it. But there I am. All I know now is this. Sometimes the past doesn't stay behind you. Sometimes it waits for you, at a mile marker, a bathroom door, or a whisper that knows your name before you say it. We all carry ghosts. The trick is figuring out whether they're following us, or if we left them somewhere long ago locked behind a door we were never supposed to open. What if the scariest hauntings aren't from the dead, but from pieces of ourselves we lost in the dark? Would you ever go back to see what you left behind? I never thought it would come to this. Not the cardboard boxes or the divorce, not even the storage unit. Those things I could have handled. What I wasn't ready for was the silence. You don't realize how loud a home is until it's empty. After Sarah left and the paperwork was signed, I stayed in the house a few extra weeks, mostly sleeping on a mattress in the living room surrounded by half-filled boxes. It was the little noises that hit hardest, the creak in the hallway, the rattle of the back door when the wind hit just right, the hum of the fridge. All the sounds that used to mean life was happening. Now they just reminded me it wasn't. Iron Gate Self-Storage was about 10 minutes outside Rapid City, on a frontage road you'd miss if you blinked. Wheat fields on one side, a rusted-out RV lot on the other. The place had a quiet sort of sterility to it. Neat rows of units, each with beige roll-up doors and matching metal numbers. It didn't look haunted by anything more than overdue rent or broken plans. The woman in the office wore a pink fleece vest and looked like she'd spent the better part of her life behind a counter. When I first signed the lease, she didn't ask questions. just took my ID, handed me a gate code and said, "Watch your fingers on the doors, they bite." I laughed politely. She didn't. I picked Unit 17 because it was toward the back, near the concrete wall, farthest from the highway. I liked that it felt removed. No traffic, no nosy neighbors. Just me and the occasional sparrow nesting in the eaves. The first week I went there most evenings. I told myself I was sorting through my things, trying to decide what to keep. Really, I just needed something to do after work. Somewhere to be that wasn't the hollow shell of a house I used to share with someone. That's when I noticed it. Unit 41 was directly across from mine, always cracked open just enough to see inside. Not wide open, never more than a few inches. The first time I thought maybe someone had forgotten to shut it all the way, but it stayed that way, day after day. One time it was open about a foot, the next time, just a sliver, like it was breathing. Inside, I could just barely make out plastic sheeting, clear, flimsy stuff hanging from the ceiling like a shower curtain in a motel bathroom. And always, in the center of the space, an old chest freezer. White, chipped, the kind you'd find in your grandfather's garage, buried under deer meat and frozen casseroles. And humming. That's what made me pause. The soft, low hum of something running. Cold air seeping out like breath in winter. I knew there were no outlets in these units. I'd tried plugging in a phone charger the week before and found nothing but blank concrete walls. That freezer had no business being powered, and yet it was. The next evening I brought it up casually when I checked in to pay for an extra lock. "That unit across from me," I said. 41. "There's a freezer running in there." The woman didn't look up from her monitor. "Corporate overflow," she muttered. "Yeah, but how's it plugged in?" She paused, met my eyes for the first time. "There are no outlets." "I know, that's what I'm saying. The thing's cold." I heard it. She leaned back in her chair slowly, folding her arms. Her voice flattened. "Sometimes people rig stuff up. Marine batteries, solar panels. It's not allowed, but it happens. As long as your gate code works, you're fine." That was the end of the conversation. I could feel it. But it wasn't the end for me. That night, I sat on my mattress with a half-empty bottle of bourbon and stared at the wall. I should have let it go. Should have just chalked it up to weirdness and moved on. But something about that freezer stuck in my head like a splinter. So I went back. I told myself I'd forgotten a sanding tool. I hadn't, I just wanted to look. The lot was empty when I pulled in. Dusk settling into that pale blue quiet. Crickets chirping in the grass. I parked and walked straight to Unit 17, and I heard it before I reached the door. Music. A slow, warbled tune like something from an old toy. Notes dragged out of tune, slurring like a broken carousel. The more we get together, together, together. It was coming from across the lot, from inside Unit 41. I froze. My keys were in my hand when I heard it. A voice, low and close. "You forgot something." I spun around so fast I almost fell. Nothing there. Empty pavement. Quiet air. And then I saw it. In my own unit, propped against the far wall, a wooden rocking horse. My knees went weak. I hadn't seen that horse in nearly 30 years. It had a red-painted saddle and one glass eye missing. The mane, just tufts of wool now, and scrawled on the base in jagged carving, "Delaney's room, 1996. That horse was taken from me when I was 6, foster care, after the incident, after the house inspection. CPS called it unsanitary, unsafe, dangerous. I hadn't thought about that in years. Not really. I stepped inside slowly, reached out and touched the wood. The same smooth handle I used to grip when I couldn't sleep. The way it creaked like a sigh. I backed out. I locked the door. I ran to the gate. The keypad beeped, but the gate didn't move. I tried again, and again. Nothing. I called the office, straight to a generic voicemail. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. "I kept it safe for you. Come back." I nearly dropped the phone. I threw the car into reverse and waited until another vehicle pulled up behind me. Their code opened the gate, and I tailgated them out, scraping the mirror on the way. I didn't go back the next day, or the day after that. I didn't sleep well. I kept dreaming of the horse, the music, the plastic sheeting. Finally, I went online. I had to know. I pulled up Iron Gate's website, checked their map, 40 units. My unit, 17, was on the back row. It should have faced a wall. But I'd been looking at Unit 41 for weeks. I zoomed in on the satellite view. There was something there, a narrow strip of shadow, but no doorway, no unit, just asphalt. I called the office again. A man answered. "There's no Unit 41, he said flatly when I asked. I told him what I'd seen. He sighed. "Ma'am, Unit 17 faces the back wall. I've worked here 7 years. That row ends at 40. I've seen it. I've heard it." He was silent for a moment, then hung up. I could have stopped there. Should have. But it felt like something was unfinished. Like a thread was still pulling at me. A week later, I drove back, parked across the road, watched through the fence. There it was. A door. Wide, unmarked, slightly open. I started having dreams again. Not just memories, recreations. The rocking horse in the hallway, the freezer humming in the dark. My name whispered from the closet. I called a friend, a contractor. He'd worked on Iron Gate when it was being built. "Was there ever a Unit 41?" I asked. He chuckled. "No, they only permitted 40. Funny thing though, we always joked about dead space. Something in the blueprints never lined up. A wall was too thick, inside longer than outside. Happens when plans get redrawn last minute. Could you hide a room in that kind of space?" He was quiet for a second. "Sure, but why would anyone?" I didn't answer. The next day I went to the zoning office, pulled the original site plans, units 1 through 40. But on one of the older hand-drawn drafts, barely visible under pencil smudges, was a rectangle, opposite Unit 17, a faint number beside it, maybe a 4, maybe a 1. I didn't sleep that night. I knew I had to go back, one last time. I parked farther away this time, cut through the tall grass behind the RV lot, slipped through a hole in the chain-link fence. No cameras back here, no traffic. I crossed the gravel, heart thudding. The music was already playing, slow, familiar. The more we get together. The door was open wider now. I pulled it the rest of the way. Inside, the same plastic sheeting. The freezer, humming steady. And lined up in front of it, items from my life. A broken wristwatch, my 3rd grade library card, a sock puppet named Lou I hadn't seen since I was 7. All laid out like offerings. On the far wall, scrawled in red marker, Delaney's room, forever. I don't remember running, just the cold air in my lungs, the clatter of my shoes on the gravel. I left South Dakota the next week, moved closer to my sister in Denver, sold most of what I owned, got a new phone, new number, never looked back. I haven't stepped inside another storage unit since, but every once in a while, when I'm driving past some forgotten corner of town or an old industrial park, I'll see it again. Just for a second, a beige metal door, wide and slightly open. Some storage units are built to hold our past, others are built to keep it alive. What if your worst memories never left? What if they were just waiting for you to come back? I thought moving back home would fix something. After dropping out of college, I figured I'd reconnect with who I was before everything got off track. Flagstaff had swallowed me whole. Tuition bills, panic attacks, 2 failed majors, a breakup that left me hollow. I came home to Ridge Hill with no plan, no degree, and no clue what came next. But I told myself this was temporary, just until I figured things out. Mom offered me the guest room. Dad pretended to understand. They tiptoed around me like I might shatter. I spent the first few weeks binge-watching reruns and refreshing job listings. Finally landed a night shift cashier job at Ridge Hill Market, the little 24-hour grocery on the edge of town. across from the auto body shop and next to a vape lounge that never had customers. Tom, the store manager, hired me after a 5-minute interview. Said he liked my smile. I didn't smile much after that. Nights at Ridge Hill weren't exciting, but they were easy, steady. I came in at 5, left at midnight. The customers were sparse, regulars mostly. An elderly woman who bought 1 can of soup every night. A guy in a mechanic's uniform who reeked of oil and Mountain Dew. Sometimes teenagers would come in for snacks or cheap wine. Nothing too weird. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry flies overhead. Freezers hummed low behind the aisles. It was all white noise, something to keep me distracted. I cleaned, restocked, stared at the clock. I'd hum songs to myself, sometimes old Billy Joel tunes my dad used to play on road trips. It kept the dread quiet. Carlos, the security guard, sat in his car outside. Always. He never came in. Never moved. He just scrolled through his phone, headlights off, engine idling. I wasn't even sure if he had a radio or any access to the camera feed. By the second week, I'd memorized every aisle, every creaky tile, every corner the light didn't fully reach. I'd made peace with the monotony. At least I didn't owe anyone anything. No exams, no expectations, no boyfriend asking me why I cried in my sleep. Then one Thursday night changed everything. It started like any other. I clocked in at 4:58 p.m., grabbed a mop from the back closet, and started wiping down the floor behind register 2. There was something meditative about it. 1 square at a time, left to right, rinse, repeat. I was halfway through my rhythm when the bell above the front door gave a soft tinkle. I looked up. A man had just walked in. Tan jacket, ball cap pulled low, no cart, no basket. He didn't glance at the produce or the freezer section or the drinks. He made a beeline to the register I was standing at, like he already knew where to go. He stopped about 6 feet away, just stood there. "Evening," I offered, my voice steady. "Need help finding anything?" He didn't answer, didn't even look at me. His eyes were locked on the convex security mirror behind me, that dusty dome in the ceiling corner that reflected most of the store. I noticed a bulge under his jacket. Not big enough to be a weapon, maybe a pack or something, but it made my throat tighten. He shifted slightly, just enough that I could see what he was carrying. A crumpled grocery bag. My stomach turned. He finally spoke, low, slow, measured. "Put everything in, and don't touch the buttons." I froze. The mop slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. I stared at him, hoping I'd misheard. "Now," he said again, calm as ever. I opened the drawer. The bills fluttered like dead leaves as my hand shook. Coins, credit slips, coupons, all of it went into the bag. A few 20s slipped from my grip and hit the floor. He didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on the mirror and the door. Not me. He stepped in close, too close, and lowered his voice. "You're lucky. You weren't supposed to be on tonight." Then he walked out. No rush, no glance back, just out the door. The bell jingled once more. Then nothing. My hands were still trembling when I looked up and saw Carlos standing just outside the doors, watching the guy walk down the sidewalk like it was nothing. He didn't get out of the car, didn't even turn the lights on. "Register ran out of paper." I lied, voice weak. "Weird," Carlos muttered, then gave me a nod and went back to his post. I locked the doors early, told myself it was just a fluke, a one-off, but something felt wrong, like the air in the store was heavier, off balance. I cleaned the counter like that would fix it, scrubbed the sticky spots until my hands turned red. I didn't even know who to call. My parents would freak. Gwen, my best friend, would tell me to quit on the spot. Eventually, I ducked into the office and called the local police. The dispatcher was polite until I told her the guy had left and nothing had been stolen. She asked if I'd called my manager. I hadn't, so I did. Straight to voicemail. Twice. Later, I learned Tom had left town that day. No warning, no text. 2 nights later, around 2:30 a.m., I got a call from Danny, my coworker from the day shift. Her voice was choked and shaking. "I saw him," she whispered. "Who?" "That guy. From the market. I swear I saw him. He was standing by the dumpster behind my building, just watching me." I didn't know what to say. "He was wearing a Ridge Hill name tag," she added. "It said Tom." I felt the blood drain from my body. "You're sure?" "I know what I saw." I didn't sleep after that. I couldn't. Her words echoed in my head over and over. He was wearing Tom's name. That sentence ruined the silence for me. I couldn't unhear it. It made his last words at the register echo louder. "You weren't supposed to be on tonight." He'd known. Known who was scheduled. Known I wasn't meant to be there. That wasn't random. I drove over to Danny's apartment the next morning. We walked to the dumpster together. Empty. Beer bottles, broken plastic. No footprints. No cameras. Just cold concrete and wind. Tom still didn't return my calls. Every shift after that, I stayed alert. I watched the mirrors, kept bleach under the counter, stocked paper spray in my apron. I started checking the mic line behind the register each night. One day it was cleanly snipped. No fray, no mess. A technician came the next day and said it had been remotely disabled. Manager's clearance, he'd said, like that was normal. The next week crawled. Then one night at 9:10 p.m., the bell above the door chimed again. Tan jacket, ball cap. He came straight to register 2. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. He held out the same grocery bag. "Empty it," he said softly. I pressed the panic button under the counter. Nothing happened. No noise, no blinking light. Dead. I filled the bag. Same routine. Then he leaned in again. "See?" he said. "Nothing happens." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. Tom's Ridge Hill market badge. He set it on the counter. He said you'd be here. And just like that, he was gone again. Gwen drove over when I told her. We sat on the front porch of my parents' house for hours. She listened, didn't talk much, just stared at the dark trees across the street like something was watching us from between them. "You think Tom's in on it?" she asked finally. "I don't think he's real anymore," I whispered. The next morning, Danny posted about it online. Said she'd seen the man again. He was standing across from her workplace now, still wearing the Ridge Hill badge, still watching. A woman in the comments claimed she'd seen him outside her office window the week before. I sent Tom a text. "Is this about something you're doing? Are you using us?" No response. 2 hours later, he finally sent a reply, "Stay home tonight." I didn't. I brought a shotgun lock from my dad's closet, didn't load it, just kept it under the counter to feel like I had something. I stayed behind register 1 that night. At 9:30, the man returned. He looked the same. Tan jacket, ball cap, calm. I hit the alarm again. Nothing. He walked up and said, "He didn't warn you, huh?" He lifted Tom's badge again, held it like it meant something. "Are you Tom?" I asked. "I am tonight." Then another customer entered behind him. A jogger, sweaty and winded. The man turned and slipped into aisle 4. Gone. By the time the jogger checked out, there was no sign of him. The next day I checked the cameras with Gwen. There was nothing on the feed, no man, no second register activity, just me. Just the jogger. Tom returned 3 days later, dressed clean, calm, confident. I didn't say a word, just held up the badge he left behind. "You know who this is, don't you?" I asked. He didn't speak, just walked to the office and locked the door. After a minute I knocked. He let me in. His face looked tired. He sat down. Then he told me everything. The man had been using his credentials, his name, his schedule, his mic access, his remote override permissions. Tom had once been involved years ago when he worked night shifts himself. But he backed out, got promoted, thought it was over. It wasn't. The man kept finding ways in. using store schedules, targeting girls alone, disabling systems through contacts still inside, watching us. Tom said he got arrested outside his own apartment 3 nights ago. Someone called about a man in a Ridge Hill uniform pacing near the alley. No charges stuck, no evidence. Tom quit, or was fired. It doesn't matter. I walked out that night. Never went back. You think you're safe because the systems are there. Panic buttons, cameras, security guards, managers with clean slacks and calm voices. But when those systems fail, when the people you rely on become part of the threat, what do you trust? Do you even know how to listen to your own fear? That's the question I leave with you. When the alarm stays silent, who will you believe? Your manager, your eyes, or the voice in your head that whispers something's not right? And if that voice speaks again, will you listen? There's a certain kind of quiet that only exists in places built to outlast people. Not the comforting kind you find at home when the fridge hums and the dog shifts in his sleep. I'm talking about the hollow quiet, the kind that hangs around fluorescent lights and smells like damp concrete. The kind that creeps in while your jeans tumble dry at 2:37 in the goddamn morning. That was Cedar Spin Laundromat for me. Back then, I was fresh out of a 6-year relationship and out of rent money in the same breath. We lived in a loft apartment in St. Louis. Exposed brick, IKEA shelves, the works, until everything unraveled in the dumb, inevitable way it always does when two people stop seeing each other in the same light. When she left, she took the bed, the books, and most of my future plans. I didn't have the energy to stay in the city. Freelance design isn't exactly reliable income when your chest feels like it's caved in. So I packed up what I could fit in my beat-up Honda and drove 2 hours back to my hometown in central Missouri, tail between my legs. Dad had been gone 4 years, but the house still stood, musty and outdated, stuck in the exact year he died. His aftershave still lingered in the medicine cabinet like he'd just stepped out. I moved into the guest room and told myself it was temporary. The nights were the worst. Small-town silence is louder than anything I'd ever heard. You notice the ticking wall clock, the creak of the front porch, the way the pipes sigh at odd hours. I tried everything: melatonin, chamomile tea, white noise machines. But the weight on my chest stayed put, and my mind wouldn't stop running. Eventually, I started driving around at night. Aimless loops through empty streets, trying to outdrive the noise in my head. That's how I ended up at Cedar Spin. Open 24 hours, rows of humming machines and vending snacks that hadn't been rotated since the Obama administration. The warmth of the dryers and the low buzz of lights, it gave my insomnia a rhythm, gave my hands something to do. It became my ritual. I didn't go to see people. Most nights there weren't any. Sometimes a trucker folding his uniforms or a woman in scrubs catching up on laundry after a double shift. But usually, it was just me. Me and the machines. I'd bring a small load just for the excuse. Whites on Wednesdays, jeans on Sundays. It didn't matter. I wasn't there for the laundry. I was there because it was the only place that didn't ask questions. That is, until early October, when everything began to fracture. It started the night I arrived a little later than usual, around 2:35. The air was damp, and the whole parking lot looked washed out under the halogen streetlights. I carried in my basket, socks and 2 pairs of jeans, and picked machine number 6, my usual. I liked it because it didn't rattle like the others. As I was loading the first pair, I noticed a man standing just outside the glass entrance. At first, I didn't really think anything of it. People wander, wait for rides, kill time. But what got me wasn't what he did. It was what he didn't. He didn't move, didn't fidget or pace or lean, just stood there, still as stone, facing inside, facing me. I turned back to my machine, forced myself to keep moving. When I glanced again, he was gone. No footsteps, no door, no motion on the sensors. The hair on my arms stood up. I told myself maybe I'd just missed him walking off, but something about the way he disappeared didn't feel natural. I tried to brush it off. focused on the detergent machine, trying to remember if I had quarters left. That's when I looked up at the wall-mounted security monitor. There I was. Same red hoodie, black leggings, my chipped green phone case propped on the table. Except, on the screen, I was sitting down. In reality, I was still standing. On screen, I watched myself lift my head, turn, like she knew. And I swear to God she looked right at me. I spun around. The folding chairs were empty. My seat was empty. But she was still there on the screen, blinking, waiting. I left everything. Basket, phone, clothes. Walked straight out and didn't stop until I got back to my car, heart pounding so hard I couldn't breathe right. I convinced myself it was a glitch. Maybe the monitor was frozen, maybe it was old footage. My brain wanted a reason. I needed a reason. But the truth was, I didn't believe that. Not really. And that was the worst part. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep the night after either. The inside of my eyelids were full of static and blinking fluorescent light. I started doing laundry at home. In the sink, the old-fashioned way. Anything to avoid going back. I soaked my jeans in vinegar like some survivalist freak. 3 days passed. On the 4th, I broke. It was 2:18 a.m. My hands were shaking and my legs ached from pacing. I told myself I'd just drive by, just look from the car, just prove it to myself that I'd imagined it. But I parked, and I got out, and I went back in. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. The hum was the same, the flickering buzz of the lights, the cold crackle of the soda machine. I walked toward the back, aiming for a different washer. Machine number 9, far row. I figured maybe switching routines would make it all feel new again. I glanced up at the monitor again, and I stopped cold. I was already there. Screen Me was standing at machine number 9, halfway through loading it. She reached for a towel. I looked down at my hand. Same towel. I hadn't moved yet. I stood there too long, just staring. Then, as if sensing me, she looked up. Our eyes met. Hers first, like she knew I'd be watching. I dropped everything and left again, didn't even close the machine lid. I drove home with the radio off, heart slamming against the inside of my ribs. I called Cody as soon as I got in the driveway. We'd been friends since 7th grade, the kind of guy who'd show up to help you move a couch at midnight and only complain a little. He answered after the 3rd ring, groggy and half asleep. "You already told me this," he muttered. "What?" "The laundromat thing. The double. The whatever it was. You said all this last week." My mouth went dry. "Cody, I didn't." "You did." Then he hung up. I just sat there in the driver's seat, clutching my phone, fingers buzzing. I didn't remember ever calling him about it. But when I scrolled through my photos, I found a blurry shot of the monitor. No caption. Timestamp. 2:44 a.m., 3 nights earlier. I didn't remember taking it. My grip on reality was starting to slip, and I knew it. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating right, and now I was seeing myself doing things I hadn't done yet. It felt like my life was getting rewritten behind my back. The next morning I went back, this time during daylight. The sun made it all seem smaller, less haunted. Mrs. Klein was there, same as always. Gray hair piled up in a knot, pencil stuck through it, her crossword book balanced on the folding table. The place smelled like pine cleaner and burnt coffee. I asked her casually if the cameras had been acting weird. She didn't look up. "You know that's not you, right?" My stomach twisted. "Excuse me?" She turned a page. "The woman on the monitor, that's not you. She's been coming in every night this week." I laughed nervously. "I'm the only one here at night." She shook her head. "No, you're not." She didn't elaborate. I left without finishing my load. The next night I didn't bring laundry. I brought my camera, set it on the edge of the folding table, lens aimed at the monitor. I hit record and sat in the chair. At exactly 2:37 a.m. she appeared, already seated, perfectly still, looking forward. Then slowly she raised her hand and held up 3 fingers. I blinked. A minute passed. Then I, without thinking, raised my hand too. 3 fingers. Like it wasn't my decision. That's when I stopped going out at night. Period. I stopped picking up calls. I stopped using the mirrors in the house. I recorded voice memos every morning. This is Rachel. It's Monday. You're okay. You're awake. This is real. I kept them in a folder on my phone just to replay if things started to get fuzzy. I didn't go back for 2 weeks. But one night I drove by. I didn't go in, just parked across the street and stared through the glass. At 2:34, the doors opened. No one entered. Inside, machine number 6 started spinning. I sat frozen, breath fogging the windshield. No basket, no shoes, no coat. I finally went inside. It was warm. The washer was full. I reached for the lid, and in the reflection, I saw her. She didn't move like a reflection, didn't mirror me. Her head tilted, just a second behind mine. I realized then, it wasn't copying me. I was copying her. I left town 3 days later, rented a cabin outside Hannibal. 1 window. No security cameras, no mirrors. But even now, I cover the bathroom mirror with a towel, just in case. Some nights I still dream about her. She's folding clothes that aren't mine, wearing my hoodie, my face. Only now I wonder, what if the sticky note wasn't a threat? What if it was a warning? What if I'm not the original? And if I'm not, who is? What if the moment you doubt your own reflection, it starts believing it's you? So let me ask you, when was the last time you were absolutely sure the person in the mirror was you first?